One is born into an incubator of love, hope, and security. This is a utopian paradise, a place we do not wish to leave. It is here that the self and world are united. The womb is the world, and I am at its center. At the moment of birth, one becomes a participant in the game of life. The search for one's talent begins on the grounds parents erect. Their wishes are the guidelines to find one's interests, to sketch an outline of the self. This method of scheduled play is increasing exponentially. It has yet to be proven beneficial. To find one's calling, one learns to take directions. One learns when to start, when to go, when to be aggressive, and when to be patient. Throughout this stage, one learns to coexist with the world. Once equipped, one must perform. Hurdles and obstacles must be overcome to solidify the image of the self. This is a continuous chase for self-determination, for as one obstacle is cleared, another arises. This continuous exertion exhausts the soul. One becomes weighed down by society's expectations, the limitations of what one should and shouldn't be. Psychologist Erich Fromm wrote, "It seems that nothing is more difficult for the average man to bear than the feeling of not being identified with a larger group." In the search for the self, one seeks direction from others. Therapy, tarot, and crystal balls are consulted to find the truth within, the ultimate self. This quest for one's singular qualities is simultaneously a quest for wholeness, fulfillment of the self. One can grow lost in the search for the self, perspective bringing about confusion. The ideal self and current self are compared to societal norms, creating conflict within. Psychologist Albert Bandura believed that most human behavior is learned through modeling. We are surrounded by people talking and acting in different ways, observing these actions as they occur. These observed actions are mentally rehearsed and then physically reproduced. This facet of human nature enters one into a cycle of reproducing observed acts, moving one further from the goal of finding oneself. To connect with the true self, one subconsciously turns to the origin of the self. This action is so deeply entrenched below the conscious, one is unaware of such intentions. This is an endeavor to return to the source, the soul's primordial wish. When the soul and self meet, harmony between the two entities is born. To change one's perspective, trust and self-confidence are required. The encouraging phrases, "to be yourself and show your passions," are intimidating. When we have to think for ourselves in this manner, the element of fear arises. It is only when we face these fears that we will ourselves to be courageous enough to meet ourselves. For if dogs are doggish and cats are cattish, one must simply try to be selfish. According to medieval Christian theology, tears were believed to wash away the stain of sins. Priests were carefully instructed on how to provoke tears from those giving confession as proof of their genuine guilt and that they truly deserved forgiveness. Weeping was such a central part of worship that it was written into the rules of monastic orders as a required accompaniment of prayer and repentance. In olden literature, stereotypes for crying were non-existent. King Arthur, King Priam, Beowulf, and even Achilles' horses shed tears. Crying was a form of proving sincere emotions used in literature to signify heroes. Tears were a sign of strength, a clear display of the soul. Shown in times of both jubilation and despair, tears signified transformation. Seen as raw, emotional, and pure, tears traced their way through time, yet grew faint as the years wore on. We first believed crying to be a divine power, tears sometimes referred to as dew from heaven's garden. Crying was a beautiful act. Today, we repress tears, fearing it to be a sign of weakness. Society has deemed crying a pathetic, childlike act, only fit for those with no other method of communication. Emotion grows trapped within the soul, bottled in groves of toxicity. These drops carry our burdens, every unspoken word. We repress our emotions, yet unwittingly damage ourselves. The act of repressing tears is an unconscious reflex, yet only intensifies the anguish and pain. Despite this, the urge to push back tears is instilled as we age, emotion piling behind the walls of the eyes. Tears contain stress hormones and toxins, yet also hold the power to kill bacteria and have been used against intentional anthrax contaminations. Through crying, we rid ourselves of these excess poisons, cleansing the body and mind. The emotional release of tears also brings us great joy, greater than any antidepressant or medication, yet we often distrust our own emotional release. When the limit of stopward emotion is reached, feelings begin to knock on the doors of the eyes. The choice to open these doors is solely our own. When opened, emotion and person become one, giving unsaid words a voice. Crying is not a shameful act. It is simply another form of communication. Through tears, we tell our hidden stories, unsaid words and thoughts illustrating the depths of our psyche. Society has imprinted crying, the purest form of emotional release, as immature. To release emotion is air for the soul, social norms encouraging the choking of our own psyche. Studies have shown that forced smiles are a catalyst for happiness. I believe otherwise. Confined to the tiny chambers of our eyes, we hold emotion in hordes. The amount of unsaid stories dying for release is myriad, restricting influences being the only barrier to our inner happiness. Once our stories are told, emotion can run free. Tears are simply water colored with voices, words not found in this material realm. I believe crying to be our release, the air of the soul, body, and mind. We must allow our eyes to speak, for tears are the only outlet for the eyes. I walk alone. The midnight street spins itself from under my feet. When my eyes shut, these dreaming houses all snuff out, through a whim of mine. Over gables, the moon's celestial onion hangs high. I make houses shrink and trees diminish. By going far, my look's leash dangles the puppet people, who, unaware how they dwindle, laugh, kiss, get drunk, nor guess that if I choose to blink, they die. I, when in good humor, give grass its green, blazon sky blue, and endow the sun with gold. Yet in my wintry moods I hold absolute power to boycott color and forbid any flower to be. I know you appear, vivid at my side, denying you sprang out of my head, claiming you feel love fiery enough to prove flesh real. Though it's quite clear, all your beauty, all your wit, is a gift, my dear, from me. Security is a state we long for, and once we enter it, we seldom wish to leave. It is a universally coveted embrace, for it combats the demons of fear and anxiety. Security is a utopian state that is wished to be attained by all. From an early age, we are introduced to alternative securities. From pacifiers to dolls to the company of others, a sense of dependability is imbued into our surroundings. Bonds are forged with these external sources in the everlasting chase after the feeling of security. Soon, however, this mindset shifts. Introduced is the ideal of success, the materialization of security into a simplified formula. Security is boiled down to a science. And then we go to work. We put into practice this mindset of conceptualizing security, and the world welcomes it. Gateways and doors beckon to us from every corner, and behavior that inches us closer to these doors is received with praise and accolades. The older we grow, the busier we get in accumulating security after security. 1 morphs into 2, morphs into 3, morphs into 4. In following the formula, our satisfaction only decreases as we cannot help wishing for more and more. Yet despite this accumulation, we are often left feeling hollow. There is a lingering feeling of emptiness that all the efforts at garnering security cannot buy, and a realization is drawn that thinking security does not provide the feeling of security. In response to this realization, we may try to preserve the security we have accumulated. We endeavor to make it permanent, to make it last. We want permanence. Is this possible? The Greek myth of Argus may hold the answer. Argus was a personal servant of the goddess Hera, and the eyes that covered his body made him the ultimate security guard. Yet even a magical being such as Argus could not maintain his grip, and at a few touches of Hermes' wand, Argus's many eyes were closed. The idea that permanent security is possible is rooted deep within our minds early on, and thus difficult to transform. Yet beneath social pressures and societal expectations, what we so desperately chase after is not the state, but feeling of security. Like all feelings, security is an impermanence, and this is entirely natural. It is a pattern we see in the shrinking and expanding of waves, the waxing and waning of the moon, and in the very inhales and exhales of our breath.